Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our last program in this series of our Active Aging virtual series. Today we have Extension Educator Abigail Cray presenting on food safety at picnics. We are recording this session, and I will turn it over to Abigail to go ahead and get started.
All right, thank you. Good morning. Yes, again, my name is Abigail Cray. I'm a registered dietitian and health and human science educator in Noble County. So summer is here, and with it, picnic season. Picnics can be enjoyable for everyone attending. Unfortunately, it is easy to get caught up in the fun and forget about the safety of the food being served. Therefore, it's important to take certain precautions to ensure your food stays safe as you head outdoors. And while most Americans realize that May through September poses the biggest threat of food poisoning, a survey conducted by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics shows that consumers are not practicing correct outdoor food safety procedures. So our objective today is to identify some food safety tips for keeping our food safe while we're outside at picnics. Whenever handling food, it's important that all food contact surfaces are as clean and sanitary as possible. The first step is to wash your hands. Human hands are natural carriers of disease-causing bacteria. Think about all the places our hands touch throughout the course of a day. They're used to cover a sneeze, take out the garbage, cut up raw pieces of chicken. And these are just a few examples of the many activities that can contaminate our hands. And remember that a contaminated hand can easily contaminate foods. So keep your hands clean. So how do I wash my hands? Well, the best way to wash hands is with soap, water, and friction. An antibacterial soap is the best if you have some available. So apply enough soap to start a good lather. Rub your hands together for at least 20 seconds. That should be about enough time to sing the ABCs or happy birthday twice. Be sure to scrub between your fingers, on top of your forearms, palms, back of your hands. These are places that are easily missed, even your wrist. Rinse well with cool water and use a clean paper towel to dry your hands. Don't dry hands on your apron or your blue jeans. You're just going to recontaminate them. So when do you wash your hands? Well, you need to wash your hands anytime you contaminate them. So wash your hands after going to the restroom, handling garbage, touching raw food like chicken, after blowing your nose, after playing catch with that family pet. The best rule of thumb is to always wash your hands before, during, and after handling food. So try to choose a picnic location that has hand washing facilities, but if no facilities are available, plan ahead and make sure that you pack hand antiseptic gel or towelettes. These are probably the next best thing for you. So to make sure that we all understand how to properly wash our hands, the CDC provides us with this video to remind us to wash our hands often and to do it the right way. See if it's gonna play.
Hand washing is one of the most important ways you can keep from getting sick and spreading germs to others. Dirty hands spread disease. This hand washing demonstration will show you how hand washing can get rid of germs and chemicals that get on our hands every day. This gel is like the germs and chemicals that we get from things we touch throughout the day, like our toys and pets. If we then rub our eyes, nose, or mouth, or pick up something to eat, the germs or chemicals can get into our bodies and make us sick. Studies have shown that people touch their eyes, nose, and mouth about 25 times every hour without even realizing it. To get rid of these germs and chemicals, CDC recommends you follow these easy steps every time you wash your hands. Wet, lather, scrub, rinse, and dry. We're going to show you the right way to do each step. First, wet your hands with clean running water. Turn off the tap and apply soap. Then, lather your hands by rubbing them together with the soap. Be sure to lather the backs of your hands, between your fingers, and under your nails. Scrub your hands for at least 20 seconds. If you don't have a clock nearby, keep scrubbing until you've sung the Happy Birthday song twice. Rinse your hands well under clean running water. Dry your hands using a clean towel, electric hand dryer, or air dry them. Washing your hands using the steps we just demonstrated is very important to get hands completely clean. Let's see how well we got rid of the germs and chemicals. Great. No more germs and chemicals. Why is this so important? Germs and chemicals from unwashed hands can get into our foods and drinks when they're being prepared or when we're eating or drinking them, which can make us sick. Also, germs and chemicals from unwashed hands can be transferred to other objects like cell phones, tabletops, or toys, and then transferred to other people's hands. That's why it's so important to wash your hands following these steps. Wet, lather, scrub, rinse, and dry, so you can stay healthy and help keep those around you healthy. For more information, visit cdc.gov/handwashing.
Okay, so now that we all know how to properly wash our hands, let's look at a few other ways so we can start clean before we head outdoors for our picnic. We always want to clean the cooler well and dry before using. Clean both the inside and outside with a solution like a mild soap and warm water. And if the cooler has a drain, make sure that you clean it with hot soapy water and drain completely. It's always a good idea when you are storing your cooler, so after use, to leave the drain open if you can to prevent, this is just going to help prevent any moisture buildup when you're storing that cooler. And if your cooler has been stored in a hot garage or a shed, it's a good idea to bring it inside like the day before that you're going to use it to help cool that cooler down before you start to pack it. Another tip to keep our food safe is to pack additional utensils and dishes, just to have these as backup. So if utensils are dropped or broken, we don't want to have to resort to using dirty utensils or dishes to serve our food because we didn't plan ahead. And like I mentioned as well, it's important to have separate utensils and dishes for handling any raw meat that will be cooked on site at the picnic. And then, so if we have these clean utensils and dishes, then we can serve the cooked meat on clean dishes and utilize clean utensils. Contact with human hands is not the only way that foods can be contaminated. Anything that touches food can cause contamination. So therefore, that's why it's so important to make sure that those coolers, anything that you're packing food into, is clean. But once we get on site for the picnic, It's important that any food contact surfaces are not only cleaned, which means that we're removing any visible dirt, but we also sanitize any food contact surfaces. So we're trying to kill any disease-causing bacteria, or at least destroy them to acceptable, safe levels. So what is the best way to clean food contact surfaces? Well, the best way to clean a food contact surface is with an appropriate detergent and abrasive cloth or a sponge. You know, there are many liquid and solid detergents available at our stores. So just be sure that the cleaner is intended to be used for food contact surfaces. And of course, read the directions carefully before using. If possible, again, if the facility where you're having your picnic at does have hot water, utilize hot water and create a good lather with that detergent, and then use that abrasive cloth or sponge. And be sure to remove any visible food, dirt that has collected on picnic tables, or if you're using a tablecloth, any other contact surfaces. And then after cleaning, make sure that you rinse well with any water that you have on hand, or you know, another good idea is to bring some water with you. How do you sanitize a food contact surface? Because cleaning really isn't enough. You know, you must sanitize the surface to make it safe to use as well. So again, sanitizing acts to kill disease-causing bacteria that may still be on the surface, even after a good cleaning. There are many sanitizing agents available for consumers to use as well, but probably one of the most popular choices, most affordable, is perhaps you know, just household bleach. So a solution that you can prepare ahead of time to take with you is 2 teaspoons of a liquid chlorine bleach per quart, 1 quart of water. So then after cleaning, so after you remove any visible dirt or food, you're going to disperse the sanitizing solution onto the food contact surface and allow that to sit there for about 10 to 15 minutes for it to be effective. And then after that period of time, you're going to rinse with water and let the food contact surface air dry. Don't dry with a dirty dish towel because again, we don't want to recontaminate the food contact surface. Doors for that picnic, let's properly pack a cooler to help reduce cross-contamination that may lead to food poisoning. So here are a few suggestions. Consider using blocks of ice. They tend to work better than cubes or ice packs to keep our food cold. You can easily make your own by filling water bottles with water and then freezing it the night before, or even milk cartons. Make sure that you try to store food in small watertight containers or plastic bags to keep out that melting ice. But also, when using smaller containers and bags, you can divide large portions of food into smaller ones. And this is really going to help that food chill faster and make serving at the picnic easier. Again, we want to avoid cross-contamination. So if we are planning to pack any raw food, you know, such as chicken that we're going to cook on site, make sure that we pack this separately away from any ready-to-eat foods. You know, ideally, we even have a separate cooler for that raw meat. I think this is a great idea. You know, slightly freeze meat, vegetables, even bread and beverages ahead of time to help keep temperature in the cooler cold longer. You know, this does take some planning ahead. You might have to set a timer even, because you don't want to freeze your items to a solid state You just want to slightly freeze them. You want to be able to drink your beverages at your picnic. So you're just going to put them in the freezer for a little bit and get them a little bit cooler than they would in the refrigerator. But this works great for sandwiches. You can freeze the bread and then make your sandwich. And that frozen bread is really going to help keep the temperature of any meat or cheese or condiments that you add to that sandwich. And it's going to be cold then and ready for picnic time. I like to do this with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches too. You can make those ahead of time the night before, put them in the freezer, and then, they're pretty much thawed, ready to go. If you get them out in the morning, they're ready to go for lunchtime. It's important that we load our food straight from the refrigerator into the cooler before, we leave for our picnic. We don't want to pack the cooler too much in advance. And again, if we're only packing one cooler, if we only have one cooler available and we do have any raw meat, make sure that this is on the bottom of the cooler. We want to protect other foods from any leaking juices that would result in that cross-contamination. If you do have availability of additional coolers, another good idea is that you may wish to have your drinks in its own cooler. Drinks tend to be requested more frequently throughout your picnic than other foods. So if your drinks are among your food that you need to keep temperature controlled, that lid of the cooler is going to be opening and closing pretty frequently to access the drinks, and therefore rapidly cooling the temperature down of any food that is among those drinks. So it's ideal if you could have any raw meat in its own container or cooler, and then your drinks as well in a separate cooler. Temperature can really be, a best friend or even a worst enemy for bacteria. So disease-causing bacteria can grow between 41 degrees Fahrenheit and 135 degrees Fahrenheit. This is often referred to as the temperature danger zone. It's important to keep foods out of this temperature danger zone whenever possible. So to achieve this goal, you must thaw food correctly, cook food thoroughly, cool food quickly, and reheat correctly, and ideally only once. So bottom line, cold food's cold, hot food's hot. It sounds simple enough, doesn't it? So let's look at a couple of these different processes. So how should I thaw foods? Well, when thawing, keep foods out of the zone, the temperature danger zone. Thawing foods at room temperature or outside in the summertime heat are not safe methods of thawing, because food in the temperature danger zone, it's going to grow bacteria. So thawing is best done in the refrigerator or in a cooler that is maintaining the correct temperature. Thawing can be done as part of the cooking process. So, if you're going to put those frozen hot dogs onto the grill and you're going to be consuming them immediately after they're cooked, then that is an acceptable method for thawing. It can also be done in the microwave, which you probably won't have access to if you're outdoors at a picnic, or under cool running water, if you can thaw it within a 2-hour period of time. But remember that these thawing methods, if you do these methods, then you need to make sure that you're cooking the food and eating it immediately. So thawing is best done in the refrigerator. And then how do you know when it's cooked properly, especially when you're outdoors at a picnic? Because proper cooking of food makes them palatable and ensures that they're safe to eat. Cooking helps to destroy disease-causing bacteria that may be present on food to safe levels. And depending on the type of food, different final cooking temperatures are recommended. So whenever checking food temperatures, you should have a thermometer available, and be sure to place the sensing part of the thermometer in the thickest part or the center of the food. So if you have a large steak and it's pretty much the same thickness throughout, then you want to make sure that you're checking the temperature, the internal cooking temperature of the food in the center of that steak, because this is usually the coldest part of the food during cooking. The CDC does have recommendations for the minimal internal cooking temperatures. So these can be referenced. And again, we highly recommend that you do have a food thermometer available to you at your picnic if you're cooking raw meat on site. What about storing foods after they've been prepared? Again, we always want to keep raw foods separate from cooked foods to prevent any cross-contamination. We want to be sure not to place cooked meat on the same dish used for raw meat. So we talked about that earlier, making sure that we have extra utensils and dishes to accommodate this, so we can serve food on a clean plate. Cooling of foods is the #1 cause of foodborne illness, and it can take a long time to cool foods, especially thick foods or things like a big pot of baked beans, perhaps. So when foods are cooled, they must pass through that temperature danger zone that we talked about to keep the time to a minimum. So again, planning ahead, making sure that you're bringing those extra dishes, because if you do have a large pot of baked beans that need to cool down correctly, you could break down the foods into smaller pieces and or portions. So again, distribute that large pot of baked beans into smaller containers, or if you prepared several large chicken breast on the grill, you could cut that chicken into smaller chunks to help it cool quickly and get out of the temperature danger zone. Cooked foods that have been cooled need to be reheated to at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit. And really foods should only be reheated once. So if you have leftovers, you cooled them correctly, and you got them home into your refrigerator, keep that in mind, that if you're reheating any foods from that picnic, it needs to be brought to 165 Fahrenheit or higher. Again, an easy rule of thumb is to remember hot foods hot, cold foods cold. So hot foods like chili and baked beans should be maintained at a temperature of greater than 135 degrees Fahrenheit until you are serving it. They can be kept hot, of course, if on an oven or like a hot grill if you're outdoors. Cold foods like potato salad or sandwiches should be kept at less than 41 degrees Fahrenheit. And with this, to keep our cold foods cold, we want to use a well-insulated cooler. Again, that might be another place that you have a thermometer, is inside your cooler, to make sure that you're maintaining a temperature of 41 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. And also another thing to kind of keep in mind is that if possible, store that cooler in an air conditioning car. I know that's not really environmentally a good recommendation, but at least try to keep that cooler in shade while you're outdoors. And try to avoid opening the cooler repeatedly. So again, if you have beverages and there's a lot of people at the picnic, then you might want to consider having those beverages in a separate cooler. Another important tip is that you must discard any perishable food that is left out for 2 hours in extreme hot weather conditions, such as what we've been having, like 90 degrees, food should never sit out for more than an hour. So keep that in mind, especially with the holiday weekend coming up. Um, Perishable food, no more than 2 hours. And if it's being exposed to extreme weather conditions, hot weather conditions, then no more than an hour. That's another situation where setting a timer, maybe on your phone, would be highly recommended. So let's review real quick. In every step of food preparation, whether you're at home or picnicking outdoors, you really need to follow these 4 guidelines to keep food safe, because safe steps in food handling, cooking, and storage are essential in preventing foodborne illnesses. You can't see, usually even smell or taste harmful bacteria that may cause illness. So we need to make sure that we wash hands before, during, and after food preparation. Start with clean food equipment, utensils, and work surfaces. Make sure that we're thawing meat and poultry in the refrigerator or as part of the cooking process, not at room temperature, not outside in 90-degree weather. If we're chopping meats and vegetables in advance before we head outdoors, make sure that we store separately to prevent any cross-contamination. And then, of course, chill food left over correctly. So again, all perishable foods, we don't want to leave out any longer than 2 hours. And if they're being exposed to extreme hot temperatures, then no more than 1 hour. So the next time you plan a picnic, check to make sure you're doing everything you can to keep food safe. Wash your hands whenever you prepare foods. Again, before, during, and after. Make sure that you're correctly cleaning and sanitizing all food contact surfaces. That might be dishes, utensils, picnic tables, grill tops. Always keep raw perishable foods separate from any ready-to-eat foods. Cook your meat thoroughly. Reference the CDC's minimum internal cooking temperature chart, and you will get this as a handout. Cool perishable foods quickly. Keep them out of the temperature danger zone. And just remember that rule of thumb: cold food's cold, hot food's hot. And if you're in doubt, make sure you throw it out. These are some of the resources that were referenced for today's presentation. You will be receiving a handout, the last article that is referenced there, How to Prevent 7 Picnic Food Safety Mistakes, as well as the CDC's internal cooking temperature chart. So I want to thank you for joining us for our last session of our June Active Aging virtual series.